a Titanic Starship, left to rot, called a human mechanic. He made it a galactic superweapon. The galaxy had a strange habit of forgetting things. Old stars died, civilizations faded, and ships, massive, proud ships, were left drifting, rusting in the dark. Among those forgotten relics floated the Titanis, a human starship so huge that alien traders called it a floating city. It had once been the pride of humanity, capable of facing entire fleets alone. Now, it was nothing but metal bones, abandoned and rotting in the silent void. Eli Calder, a human mechanic with no fear of danger and a mind that could solve impossible problems, drifted through this sector in his small salvage ship. His reputation had earned him invitations to wealthy colonies, but Eli preferred the quiet life of scavenging. Danger, after all, was where his talent shined brightest. He scanned the debris field ahead. A massive shadow moved slowly across his sensors, something larger than any derelict station he had seen before. His eyes widened when the magnitude of it hit him. "It can't be," he muttered, leaning closer to the viewport. The starship, the Titanis, loomed above him like a sleeping giant. Its hull was scarred and pitted. Sections were torn open, exposing skeletal frames and dark, lifeless corridors. The engines were cold. The weapons mounts were empty. Even from a distance, the sheer size of it was awe-inspiring. Eli maneuvered his small craft closer, his heart racing. The galaxy had long assumed humanity's golden age was over. Ships like the Titanis had vanished centuries ago. And yet, here it was. A chance like this didn't come twice. Docking clamps extended from his ship, and he carefully latched onto the hull. With a deep breath, he suited up and opened the hatch. Air hissed as it evacuated, and he stepped into darkness. Inside, the silence was absolute. Dust floated in slow beams of light that penetrated the cracked hull. The corridors were massive, bigger than any human ship he had ever been on, yet entirely empty. Eli switched on his portable lights, scanning the walls and the floors. Old warning signs in human script were faded, some unreadable, but others whispered stories of a civilization long gone. He could feel it, the pulse of the ship, weak but not dead. Somewhere deep inside, the engines slept, waiting. He moved deeper, stepping carefully over debris and collapsed bulkheads. Parts of the ship were shattered, the aftermath of centuries of neglect and the battles it had survived. Yet, as he walked through the corridors, he saw the potential. Every pipe, every panel, every exposed circuit was a puzzle waiting to be solved. Eli's fingers itched to start. "This is perfect," he said to himself. "Perfectly broken." But Eli wasn't the only one watching. From a distance, a scout ship from the Zorath Confederacy observed his arrival. The Zorath were a feline-like alien race, proud and arrogant, who had always considered humans primitive. "Another human?" hissed the scout captain over comms. "They're always crawling into places they shouldn't be. That ship has been abandoned for centuries. Let him waste his life." The others snorted in amusement. To them, humans were fragile creatures, clever maybe, but weak. No single human could ever awaken the Titanis again. Back inside the ship, Eli reached the central hub, the bridge. The windows were cracked, but some still held against the vacuum outside. He ran his hands over the control panels, pressing buttons here and there. Nothing happened at first, but he wasn't discouraged. "Old power cells, probably fried," he muttered. "No matter, I'll make it work." Eli began scavenging his own ship for tools and spare circuits. He rigged temporary connections and rerouted energy lines. Sparks flew, but instead of fear, he felt exhilaration. Most humans would have fled at the first sign of danger or decay, but Eli thrived on challenge. Hours passed, or maybe days. It was hard to tell in the endless darkness. Slowly, lights flickered along the corridors. One by one, the systems awoke, coughing and groaning, but alive. The bridge hummed faintly as the main screens flickered to life. Eli allowed himself a small grin. "You're not dead yet, old friend." Suddenly, a sound echoed through the hallways. A low, mechanical groan that was almost a voice. Something deep in the ship had stirred, reacting to the energy he had injected. Eli froze for a moment, listening. The sound was eerie, but it didn't frighten him. To him, it was proof. Proof that the ship could live again. Meanwhile, outside, the Zorath scouts grew restless. The human was proving to be more than they expected. "He's doing something," muttered the scout captain. "Impossible. No human could—" "Look," another hissed. The hull of the Titanus began glowing faintly as the engines came online. A pulse of energy radiated across the void, enough to register on sensors light years away. Inside the ship, Eli laughed softly. "Oh, this is going to be fun." He didn't stop to rest. The ship's communication system, long silent, crackled to life under his skilled hands. Old logs, messages left decades ago, played faintly. Most were corrupted, but some were intact. They spoke of battles, of human pride, of victories against impossible odds. Eli listened, feeling a strange kinship with the voices from the past. "This ship," he whispered, "was built to fight gods, and I'm going to make it fight again." Alien scouts watched in disbelief as the ship's massive silhouette shifted slightly in space. Systems that had been silent for centuries now hummed. Shields flickered on for the first time in generations. The galaxy had thought humans were finished, but here, one human was rewriting that belief. Eli moved to the weapons control room next. The mounts were empty, but the mechanisms still existed. He studied them carefully, imagining how they could be restored or even improved. He found an old plasma conduit and rigged it to a makeshift reactor. Sparks flew again, and the room lit with a pale blue glow. "If anyone thinks this is impossible," Eli muttered, adjusting a connector, "they haven't met a human mechanic." Hours stretched into the void as he worked tirelessly. Outside, alien patrols grew nervous. They could see the lights of the Titanus, shining like a beacon in the darkness, a reminder that humans were not to be underestimated. By the time Eli paused, he had activated the primary bridge systems, the life support, and the energy grids. He could hear the faint hum of the engines, a slow, steady heartbeat of the ancient giant. He looked around the bridge and allowed himself a moment of pride. "You're alive," he said. "And soon, you're going to show the galaxy what humans can do." As he stepped out to rest, he didn't notice the flickering sensors in the dark corners of the ship. Shadows moved where they shouldn't. Something, or someone, was watching. The galaxy might have forgotten the Titanus, but some things never stay asleep forever. Outside, the Zorath scouts retreated, sending reports to their commanders. The message was simple: the human has started the ship. This changes everything. Back inside, Eli didn't sleep. He studied schematics, rewired circuits, and even scavenged alien tech from his small ship to integrate with the giant. Every problem was a challenge, every obstacle an opportunity. By the end of the cycle, the Titanus was stirring like a colossal beast awakening. Lights glowed, engines rumbled faintly, and the bridge was alive with energy. Eli stood at the command console, hands on the controls, eyes shining with excitement. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "we begin the real work." And with that, the forgotten giant, left to rot, dismissed by the galaxy, was no longer just a relic. It had a pilot, it had purpose, and it had a human genius who would make it something the galaxy had never imagined. The galaxy might have forgotten humanity, but humanity, Eli Calder realized, was far from done. The first pulse of the Titanus's engines had been weak, a slow heartbeat echoing through centuries of silence. But for Eli Calder, it was a start. A start that meant endless possibilities. He moved through the colossal corridors of the ship, tools in hand, energy packs strapped to his belt. Every panel, every wire, every broken system called to him like a challenge he was born to answer. "This ship doesn't just want to live," he muttered. "It wants to fight." The main console flickered with life, showing partial maps of the galaxy, long-dated communications, and outdated weapons schematics. But Eli wasn't limited by old designs. Human ingenuity was his guide. Where others saw rust and decay, he saw potential. He started with the engines. Ancient, fused circuits needed rewiring. He scavenged power modules from his own ship, rewiring them to fit into the massive core. Sparks flew and alarms blared, but he grinned. "Nothing worth doing ever comes easy," he said. Hours turned into cycles as he worked tirelessly. The corridors echoed with the faint hum of energy coursing through pipes, twisting through conduits, and settling into long-dead systems. Slowly, life returned to the giant. Lights flickered to a steady glow. The massive life support systems groaned awake, purifying the stale, centuries-old air. Even the ship's gravity stabilizers, once inert, hummed softly beneath his feet. But Eli knew engines and life support were just the start. If he wanted the Titanis to be more than a drifting relic, he needed weapons. And weapons meant danger. The weapons bays were a mess. Centuries of neglect had left them in ruins. Plasma cannons were corroded, missile launchers frozen in place. Even the targeting arrays were shattered. Eli climbed over collapsed panels and twisted beams, taking measurements and improvising solutions. He found ancient plasma conduits and rerouted them through salvaged alien tech, creating makeshift energy weapons. The cannons wouldn't fire like new, but they would work. They would intimidate. They would survive. "This is going to hurt someone's ego," Eli muttered, tapping a glowing panel. While he worked, his movements were watched. Outside the ship, alien scouts had returned, curious about the rising energy signature. Zorath vessels hovered at the edge of the sector, whispering warnings to one another. Humans were clever, yes, but no one had expected one human to awaken a ship that had been dead for centuries. "They're still alive," hissed a Zorath officer, pointing at the flickering energy spikes from the Titanis. "The human is working magic inside that ship. It can't be possible." Impossible, however, was Eli's specialty. Back inside, he focused on communications. Long-dead subspace channels crackled faintly as he patched in a combination of human and alien transmitters. Messages from centuries past filled the screens. Battle reports, fleet movements, even personal logs from humans long gone. Eli ignored most, but he kept a few. "A human always learns from the past. Not just alive," he said softly. "Smart, too." By the next cycle, the engines were stabilizing. They pulsed with increasing rhythm, sending small shockwaves across the hull. Eli moved to the bridge's main viewport. Stars streaked by faintly as the ship shifted its orientation. He smiled. It was slow, but the Titanis was moving under its own power. But movement brought attention. Zorath patrols weren't the only ones watching. Pirates and scavengers from nearby systems had picked up the unusual energy signatures. They assumed an abandoned ship rich with technology was unguarded. They didn't know Eli was already inside, wiring traps and energy shields. Eli first noticed them as small blips on his makeshift radar. A small pirate fleet, likely expecting an empty relic to loot visitors, he said, cracking his knuckles. "Hope you brought gifts." He ran to the weapons control bay. The plasma conduits glowed faintly under his hands as he activated the rudimentary targeting systems. Shields hummed to life, forming a faint blue barrier over the hull. The pirate's scanners picked up the shield and hesitated. The first attack came from a missile frigate. Its weapons flared as it aimed at the Titanis, confident the ship could do nothing. Eli watched carefully, his mind racing. He couldn't risk a direct hit to the core. Not yet. Improvisation was key. He rerouted energy from the engines to the forward plasma arrays. When the first missile struck, the ship released a pulse of energy that disrupted its trajectory, sending it spinning harmlessly into space. Another missile followed, then another, each neutralized by Eli's clever rerouting of power. The pirate fleet began to panic. The human inside the Titanis was not a mechanic. They had underestimated him. Eli laughed softly. "This is fun," but the pirates weren't done. They tried to board, sending smaller craft through gaps in the shields. Eli had anticipated this. Using recycled drones scavenged from his own ship and repurposed internal security systems, he created automated defenses. The boarding parties were neutralized before they could even reach the hull. Outside, the pirates retreated, broadcasting warnings to any who might approach. The Titanis had proven it could defend itself. One human, with a mind for invention, had turned a derelict into a fortress. Inside the ship, Eli didn't rest. He moved to the ship's sensor arrays. Ancient sensors, once capable of detecting threats light years away, were corroded but intact. He calibrated them using a combination of human logic and alien software patches. The ship could now see farther and smarter than it ever had in centuries. Not bad for an old giant, Eli muttered, patting the main console. Hours later, Eli moved to the engineering deck, a cavernous space filled with engines, conduits, and control systems. Some areas were dangerous. Exposed plasma conduits buzzed with lethal energy. But Eli moved confidently, rerouting power, repairing cores, and improvising solutions. He rigged a temporary auxiliary reactor using scavenged alien fusion cells. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to keep the ship stable while he worked on full restoration. "You just wait," he said to the ship softly. "I'm going to make you unstoppable." The first wave of challenges was over, but new ones were coming. Word of a human reawakening a starship spread through alien networks faster than light. Rival factions began sending reconnaissance ships. Pirates grew bolder. Even the Zorath Confederacy couldn't ignore the anomaly. Eli noticed the increasing traffic on his newly restored long-range sensors. Several alien fleets were moving toward the sector. If they arrived before he finished upgrades, the Titanic might be destroyed. But Eli didn't panic. Humans thrived under pressure. Creativity thrived under threat. He moved to the weapons bays, studying the damaged plasma cannons. He dismantled, rewired, and recalibrated them using his own designs. By the time he finished, they could fire bursts more powerful than the original models. Shields were upgraded with layers of recycled energy plating from alien scrap. Engines were optimized for agility, not just raw speed. The ship would no longer be slow and lumbering. It could maneuver. It could fight. By the end of the cycle, Eli stood in the bridge, looking at the displays. The ship hummed with life, weapons charged, shields active, engines thrumming. He allowed himself a rare smile. "This isn't just a ship," he said softly. "It's a statement." From outside, alien scouts watched in disbelief. The reports coming back to their fleets were almost impossible. Humans were supposed to be weak, fragile, easily crushed. And yet, here was one human taking a rusted relic and turning it into something terrifying. The galaxy would remember this moment. Eli didn't wait for the recognition. There was more work to do. He had mapped out improvements for every system. He had plans for propulsion, for weapons, for defense. And he had begun experimenting with ways to integrate alien technology without losing the human ingenuity that made the ship truly unique. "This ship isn't just going to fight," he said, adjusting a control panel. "It's going to teach the galaxy a lesson." And as he worked, the Titanic continued to stir. Lights glowed in corridors where no human had walked for centuries. Energy pulsed through engines that hadn't moved in lifetimes. Slowly, steadily, the ship became what it had once been, and something more. The galaxy thought humanity was finished. It had forgotten humans, dismissed them as minor players. It had been a mistake. Because inside a rusted giant, one human was awakening a power the galaxy had never seen. And when the Titanic was fully alive, no one alien, pirate, or Confederate would ever underestimate humanity again. The Titanic had awakened. Its massive engines pulsed with steady rhythm. Its weapons hummed faintly with energy, and its hull glinted under the stars like a dark promise. Eli Calder walked across the bridge, his mind racing with plans. What had started as a salvage mission was now becoming a warship capable of changing the balance of the galaxy. But Eli knew awakening the giant was only the beginning. A ship this size with this much firepower demanded more than just basic repairs. It demanded strategy, improvisation, and imagination, the tools humans excelled at. He moved from console to console, checking systems. Shields were stable. Engines had been recalibrated to allow surprising maneuverability. The weapons arrays, plasma cannons, missile launchers, and repurposed alien tech were online. Now came the real challenge, making the Titanic more than a ship, making it a weapon no one could ignore. Time to teach the galaxy something, Eli said, voice low but steady. The first signs of trouble appeared quickly. Sensors picked up multiple fleets moving toward the sector. The Zorath Confederacy was mobilizing, and word had spread to other alien powers as well. No one could ignore a human reawakening a ship the size of a city. Eli studied the data. The first wave consisted of Zorath cruisers, sleek and deadly, equipped with advanced plasma weapons designed to punch through older ships' shields. The second wave appeared to be mercenary fleets, unpredictable, aggressive, but not coordinated. The final wave, however, were reconnaissance frigates from the Dravik Alliance, a reptilian species known for brute force and cunning tactics. All of them think they can stop me, Eli muttered. Let's see what they do when the impossible fights back. The plasma cannons flared faintly as he calibrated targeting systems. The missile launchers clicked as energy flowed through repurposed conduits. Then came the moment of improvisation, the hallmark of human genius. The Titanus energy grid, designed for old human reactors, couldn't handle sustained volleys from the Zorath. So Eli rerouted power in real time, drawing from auxiliary systems and scavenged alien reactors, creating bursts of energy that no standard weapon system could predict. Not just firepower, he muttered, adjusting a panel. Creativity. The first engagement began as the Zorath fleet entered range. Their plasma beams streaked through space, aiming for the hull. Shields shimmered under the assault, but Eli anticipated this. With a few adjustments to the shield modulation frequency, he reflected a portion of the plasma energy back toward the attackers. The first cruiser exploded in a silent bloom of fire, sending fragments drifting into the void. The rest of the fleet faltered, surprised by the humans' ingenuity. Eli grinned. Don't worry, I'm just getting started. He activated the missile launchers next. Not using standard targeting algorithms, he improvised a pattern based on what he had learned from observing the alien ships. The missiles struck with unerring precision, hitting weak points that alien engineers hadn't considered vulnerable. One frigate went spinning into the darkness, another fractured into debris. The Zorath scrambled. Their confidence was shattered. No one had expected a single human to turn a rusted relic into a force capable of destroying an entire fleet. But Eli was only warming up. He had integrated alien tech into the ship in ways no one had imagined. Old targeting arrays were now linked to the plasma conduits, creating unpredictable energy bursts that could pierce even reinforced shields. The Titanus moved like a living thing, anticipating attacks, adjusting energy flows, and striking before the enemy could react. As he maneuvered the ship, Eli noticed a pattern in the enemy fleets. The Zorath preferred direct assault. The mercenaries relied on chaotic boarding tactics, and the Dravik ships attempted flanking maneuvers, expecting the human to falter under pressure. Eli smiled. Humans thrived on unpredictability. He rigged an improvised decoy system, projecting holographic images of the Titanus across several sectors. Missiles fired at empty space, cruisers collided in confusion, and the enemy was forced to regroup. From a distance, the scale of the Titanus became clear. Smaller ships were no match for its combination of firepower, ingenuity, and adaptability. One by one, the fleets faltered. One alien commander even attempted a direct assault on the bridge using a stealth fighter, hoping to sabotage the ship from inside. Eli anticipated this, deploying automated defenses that neutralized the threat before it could reach the inner corridors. Hours passed, or perhaps it was days. Time lost meaning in the intensity of combat. But as the final wave of alien ships retreated, Eli took a moment to survey the results. Entire fleets had been reduced to fragments. Communication systems across the sector were filled with messages of disbelief. One human, working inside a ship left to rot, had turned it into a weapon capable of defeating multiple organized fleets. They underestimated humans, he said softly, and now they're paying for it. But the battle had more consequences than he had anticipated. Word of the Titanus spread faster than any fleet could chase it. Systems across the galaxy began to panic. Fleets that had previously ignored humanity now diverted their courses to investigate. Some came with warships, some with diplomacy, and others with the hope of destroying the ship before it became a threat. Eli didn't wait. He used the chaos to his advantage. The Titanus was not just a weapon of destruction, it was a symbol. Using the ship's communications array, he broadcasted a message across the sector. A simple human voice, calm and confident, echoed through alien networks. This ship is alive. So are we. Humanity will not be ignored. Retreat or face the consequences. The message spread like wildfire. Fleets hesitated. Alien commanders argued among themselves. The galaxy had underestimated humans for centuries, and now it was realizing that one human could turn a derelict ship into a force that no one could match. Inside the ship, Eli worked tirelessly. He continued to integrate alien technology, improving weapons systems, optimizing engine output, and reinforcing shields. Every modification made the ship stronger, faster, smarter. By the end of the next cycle, the Titanus was no longer just a repaired relic. It was a superweapon, capable of facing entire fleets alone. But Eli knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy would not forget this act. Alien powers would seek revenge, and humanity would face challenges it had never imagined. He would need to continue innovating, using creativity and skill to keep the ship ahead of any threat. As he stood on the bridge, looking at the glowing hull of the Titanus, he allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. The ship had been abandoned, left to rot, dismissed by the galaxy. But now it had a pilot who refused to follow limits, and that made all the difference. The galaxy had assumed humanity was finished. It had assumed that humans were weak, fragile, and irrelevant. It had been a mistake, because inside the hull of a ship the size of a city, one human had shown that creativity, ingenuity, and determination could turn even a forgotten relic into the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy. And the galaxy was only beginning to understand what that meant. The Titanus glowed in the void, a massive shadow against distant stars. Its engines pulsed with energy, shields shimmered like rippling water, and weapons hummed faintly with anticipation. It was no longer a forgotten relic. It was a symbol, a reminder that humans were not weak, and that ingenuity and courage could reshape the galaxy. Eli Calder stood on the bridge, hands resting on the main console. He had spent countless cycles restoring the ship, integrating alien technology, and improvising systems that no one thought possible. And now, after the first battles, the galaxy was finally paying attention. Reports from alien fleets flooded the sensors. Some sent warnings. Others tried to negotiate. Many simply fled at the news of a single human piloting a ship capable of destroying entire fleets. Eli smirked. I didn't build you just to be ignored. The first real test of his legacy came when a Zorath admiral led a massive fleet into the sector. Hundreds of ships, armed with advanced plasma arrays and reinforced hulls, advanced toward the Titanus. The human presence in their midst had sparked panic, but this fleet was not willing to flee. They intended to destroy him. Eli didn't panic. The Titanus was ready. He had upgraded its shields, optimized its engines, and reinforced weapon systems. But more importantly, he had learned to anticipate enemy tactics and improvise in ways no alien fleet could predict. The battle began with a volley of plasma beams streaking across the void. The shields of the Titanus absorbed the first strikes, diverting energy to weak points that Eli had reinforced. He activated the newly integrated weapon systems. Plasma cannons fired in unpredictable bursts, missiles launched in intricate patterns, and energy pulses disabled enemy targeting arrays. The Zorath fleet faltered. They had never faced a ship that could anticipate their every move. Each attack Eli made forced them to adjust, to react, to make mistakes. The Titanus moved like a living thing, dodging, striking, and retaliating with precision. Eli grinned as he watched the fleet struggle. This is exactly why humans never surrender. He didn't just fight. He sent a broadcast across the sector, his voice calm, confident, and human. Humanity will no longer be dismissed. Leave this sector or face consequences. Some fleets surrendered immediately. Others hesitated, unsure if they could trust their sensors. Even in the Zorath command ships, doubt began to spread. But Eli didn't stop there. He knew that defeating enemies wasn't enough. The galaxy needed proof that humans were not just survivors, They were innovators, fighters, and thinkers. He initiated a series of maneuvers that no alien fleet could predict. Using the ship's advanced engines, he executed flanking patterns that allowed his weapons to strike multiple ships simultaneously. Shields were diverted in real time to absorb incoming attacks. Holographic decoys confused enemy targeting systems, causing collisions and misfires. One by one, enemy ships fell. The battle was fierce, but the Titanis was unmatched. A single human had turned a forgotten, rusting starship into a force capable of reshaping the balance of power in the galaxy. After the battle, the sector went silent. The survivors fled or retreated to report back to their homeworlds. Eli floated on the bridge, exhausted but triumphant. The Titanis hummed beneath him, alive and powerful, ready for anything. But Eli knew that true victory wasn't about destruction. It was about ensuring humanity's place in the galaxy. Alien factions were beginning to respect humans, not because of diplomacy or treaties, but because they had no choice. A single human, using skill and ingenuity, had proven that underestimating humanity was dangerous. Eli began sending messages of peace to nearby systems, offering alliances, technology exchanges, and safe passage. Fleets that had once ignored humanity now paused, listening to his proposals. Many accepted, recognizing the wisdom of aligning with a race capable of such brilliance. "The galaxy is learning," Eli said softly, adjusting the ship's systems. "And it's learning fast." He spent the next cycles overseeing upgrades to the ship. Every weapon, every engine, every shield was improved. The Titanis became faster, stronger, smarter. It wasn't just a weapon, it was a beacon of human ingenuity. Word of the ship and its pilot spread across star systems. Rumors of the human mechanic who revived a dead starship reached planets far beyond the conflict zone. Some called him a hero, others feared him, but all agreed. Humanity had returned to the stage of the galaxy, and it would not be ignored. The Titanis' next challenge came not from brute force, but from politics. The galaxy's major factions convened, seeking to negotiate terms. They feared human retaliation if provoked, but they also saw the potential of an alliance. Eli met with alien leaders in neutral space, projecting holograms from the Titanis. He spoke clearly, without arrogance, but with undeniable confidence. "Humans have survived when no one expected it. We have ingenuity that cannot be matched. We do not seek endless war, but we will defend ourselves. Treat humanity as equals, and there will be peace. Underestimate us, and the consequences will be severe." The alien leaders, some still trembling at the thought of the battle, had little choice but to agree. Treaties were signed, trade routes reopened, and humanity gained influence far beyond what any human could have imagined just cycles ago. Back on the Titanis, Eli watched as messages of acceptance, respect, and cautious admiration filled the ship's communications network. He allowed himself a rare moment of pride. The ship had become more than metal and circuits. It was a statement, a proof of human resilience, creativity, and determination. Eli walked through the corridors of the Titanis, marveling at what he had achieved. Systems he had repaired now operated flawlessly. Weapons that once lay dormant were ready for any threat. Engines that had been rusting in silence now purred with controlled power. He had taken a ship that the galaxy considered dead and turned it into a force no one could ignore. And yet, he knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and there were countless challenges ahead. New fleets would arise, new threats would emerge, and new tests of human ingenuity would follow. But Eli welcomed them. He had proven one thing already, that humanity could overcome the impossible. As he stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars, he whispered to the ship, "You and I, old friend, we've only just begun." The Titanis pulsed in response, its lights shimmering as if acknowledging the promise. Together, human and ship had reshaped the galaxy's perception of humanity. One human mechanic had taken what others considered trash and turned it into a weapon, a beacon, and a legacy. The galaxy would not forget Ellie Calder, and it would never underestimate humans again. From the void, rumors began to spread. Across star systems, whispers of a massive ship, a human at its helm, and the sheer brilliance of both circulated like wildfire. Some fled at the name, others sought alliances. Everyone knew one thing: humanity had returned, and one human had made it impossible to ignore. Eli smiled, leaning back in the bridge chair. The Titanus hummed beneath him, alive, powerful, and unstoppable. The galaxy had learned a lesson it would never forget. And humanity? Humanity had its place again. A place earned not through brute force alone, but through intelligence, ingenuity, and courage. The stars stretched endlessly before him. The galaxy waited, and Eli Calder, the human mechanic, and the Titanus, the ship no one thought could live again, were ready.